Good morning. Welcome back to the Olympic Peninsula. I was going to go to Quinalt for the next several days, but this morning my phone let me know that there is a high wind advisory that could result in severe loss of life and property, or cause severe threat to life and property. So I figure sleeping in a van under a bunch of ancient trees right by the ocean is not a good idea. So I've made it to Quinalt, and I might stay here. I might just ride out the storm here. There is a campground next door, or nearby, but that's what I was worried about. The campground has a lot of trees. It would be nice to spend the day here, even though it's not a beautiful day at the beach. I don't know. One of the fun things about traveling in a van and not having exact plans. And obviously, the weather always makes the plans for you, or dictates your plans. So I'm going to go to Lake Quinalt, which I wasn't going to make it to, but it looks like I am. We're in Quinalt. I've stayed here before, and there's minimal trees, and there's houses nearby, so if something happens with the road, there will be people with chainsaws, and service isn't too far away. So we're both on a road. She's happy to have a little freedom. Yeah, okay. So here we are. Hopefully none of those trees decide to fall on us. One negative is there's these little bugs flying everywhere. So I'm assuming they're flying into the van. I don't like that. I mean, we're by a river. This place, even though it's not secluded, like it's on a road. There's a road right there, and basically anyone could come and park right next to me if they wanted to. It's so peaceful, at least right now. I've not experienced it when it hasn't been peaceful, but I could imagine you should never count on your peace in a place like this. Unless you take the whole thing up. Which, I mean, I guess technically there are 4 spots to park. Case in point, in the last 10 minutes, I mean, granted the sun's going down, 2 different cars have driven out. There is a campground that way, I forgot. And really there's reasons why I didn't put Quinalt on my list, because I think Quinalt warrants an entire trip to the peninsula with a focus on this area for 2 to 3 weeks possibly. And there's also Queets, which is just north of here. This spot, it's relatively warm not, or slash not cold. The rain and the storm have not come yet. They're coming from the coast, and we are inland a bit. It's just really nice right now. The weather feels good. Everything smells so fresh. There's nothing like the forest. So I've been just basically riding out the storm. Inland, it has been as described. It started about 4 or 5 o'clock. Rained pretty heavily, steadily. The creek, it's a creek, yeah, it's called a creek, has increased in flow significantly and increased in size as well just overnight. So that's pretty fascinating, actually. Anyway, I can see that there's a new wave of really dark clouds headed this way. So I'm expecting, ooh, there's a bug in here. There's probably many bugs in here, unfortunately. I'm expecting it to get worse before it gets better. But I'm glad that we came in, because I don't know. I'm sure we would have been fine. It's just all of the trees. I didn't want to be camped under trees. That was my thing. And I really would love to head back that way and get there, but tonight, but the storm's not supposed to end until about 4 o'clock, I think. Yeah, it's pretty boring, just passing the day in the van, waiting for the storm. Well, the storm has made it here. It's windy and rainy, but I'm imagining not nearly as bad as it is on the coast. So it's good that there's this buffer. I guess the best way to describe it is there's a bit of a mountain range that has to block the storm path before it gets to us or to me. But boy, the creek sure is raging. Anyway, I am going to make garlic soup, or as Julia Childs calls it, Aigo Bouido. I'm saying that so wrong. Anyway, garlic soup. It's just a perfect light but satisfying soup to make, super easy. We're going to start by boiling some water and dropping an entire head of garlic cloves, unpeeled but separated, into water. Do a quick boil, and that will get their skins off easily. And then it's just garlic and a bunch of seasonings and water and thyme. And then at the end, sort of an egg yolk egg yolk and olive oil mixture basically. And she does recommend, other than the obvious of crispy, does she say? Oh, maybe she doesn't. Oh yes, accompanied by bread and cheese. By the bread and cheese. Oh, because she says to make French bread with Swiss cheese, which I don't have Swiss cheese, but I do have some French bread. And I think just French bread crisped up will be perfect. But she also recommends serving it with poached eggs, which is a little ironic because I just went through her method of poached eggs recently, which was successful. So I'll see how I feel later if I want to add that poached egg as well. We'll see. But yeah, I'm going to enjoy this storm and hope I don't get hit by anything. I think I'm in a good spot, like I might have said. That's why I picked this spot. One thing that Julia does say, which I think is worth noting, is that this soup, Aigo Bouido, so not right, Aigo Bouido garlic soup is considered to be very good indeed for the liver, blood circulation, general physical tone, and spiritual health. A head of garlic is not at all too much for 2 quarts of soup. For some addicts, it's not even enough. I do have 2 cloves of garlic. I could really go for it. And there's another rainbow. I feel like I should run out. Every time I've seen one, I've gone outside to film it. It's a good one. Even looks like the end of that one might be reachable. It's boiling. It occurred to me, is that just her method of peeling garlic? Like, could I have just peeled the garlic instead of doing all of that and using the water that now I don't really feel comfortable using for my soup? I don't know. I am going to, when I have service, look into that. And maybe next time I make the soup, I won't peel the garlic. I've always just done it the way I've been told. And that's by Julia, and that's this method. But being in a van, I kind of like to look for ways not to use so much water. Do I add more garlic? I feel like I should. Those are big cloves. I think I'm going to add some more garlic. It doesn't say to cover it. It just says to lightly boil for 30 minutes. Julia, do I cover it? What do I do? I like how my phone keeps wanting to refocus for me. So I actually read the recipe. And for the poached eggs, you can add those instead of egg whites and oil, which would be the next step after straining this. I'm supposed to put in an egg white mixture or egg yolk mixture. Egg yolk makes more sense. Probably egg yolk. The few things I have made out of that cookbook in the past when I was in a house, I just remember specifically coq au vin. There's just so many steps and then little recipes within the recipe. And I know that's not even the wildest one. So I'm always very hesitant with Julia. And I don't, I can't even imagine baking one of her cakes. That would be an interesting thing. I dipped a little bread in the broth and it's really good, just as it is. I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to eat the garlic and all of the herbs floating around, but the broth itself, good. And one thing that's weird, they must have been stuck together and I didn't notice. The recipe called for half a bay leaf, so I chose a small bay leaf. And there are, well, there's one. There are 2 bay leaves in there. I don't know where the other one is right now, but I swear there were 2 bay leaves. Let's see if I can hiding together. Aha! 2 bay leaves. And I only put 1 in, so, or I thought I had, obviously not. Sneaky suckers. That's how they get you. So here we go. That will be discarded. There is my soup. Looks a bit oily, to be fair, but it also looks delicious. And I'll just add some bread and cheese. And then later, I think I'll poach some eggs into this one once I strain it. And if I had a food mill, it would be quicker. And I actually think I do have a food mill in my storage. It's just not something I could really see justify carrying around in my van. TBD, maybe a winter thing. It might be a good winter thing. I'm trying to place all of my dishes there. Precarious. Yeah, but I need the spoon. I want to have a taste before the bread and cheese. So here's what it looks like. It needs salt and pepper. And she did say to correct. So I'm going to add salt and pepper. And then I'm going to have lunch. You wouldn't even know there's egg in there. It really does kind of look like oily water. It might not be for everybody. I did put too much oil in it. That was my bad. Salt and pepper. And maybe it would be different. Oh, my spoon. Maybe it would be different if I blended it all together, which is the intention. That's better. It's a decent lunch. Bon appetit. Bon appetit. I don't know. That's my bad Julia Child's impression. Bon appetit. I say that with sincerity. The road I was on forms a loop around the lake, but at the time of my visit, there was a bridge out, so the only way out was back. On my way back, I stopped at the ranger station and went to the Maple Glade Rainforest Trail as well as the Kestner Homestead Trail. The Maple Glade Rainforest Trail is less than a mile long, and the Kestner Homestead Trail is about 1.5 miles. But they're all pretty flat. Sometimes there's logs to crawl over, and they are a bit weavy and windy, so you might get turned around. But other than that, they're totally worth it. So try to stop if you're ever in the area.